We're talking now about the Hispanic Caucus and how they endorsed. They took a vote and they endorsed the latest compromise ordinance from two different groups. That's why it's called compromise. GAPA, the Grassroots Alliance for Police Accountability, and COPA and CPAC. The Citizen Police Community Council. I forgot what that A stands for, and I apologize for CCAP. We're having Tamer on next week to talk about a representative from CPAC on to talk about it. But so Hispanic ordinance endorses this ordinance. What does that mean? Okay, a little background. GAPA, the Grassroots Alliance for Police Accountability, was basically the first set of like community groups to meet about creating some kind of civilian council commission, depends on what you want to call it, to oversee, to take a larger role in overseeing the police department, have a voice in the hiring and firing of the police superintendent, have some kind of voice in a hiring of the head of what was going to then be COPA, Citizens Office of Police Accountability, and also the police board, the head of the members of the police board. So GAPA, let me back up and say, as the ordinance to create the Deputy Public Safety Inspector General, and which also contained the creation of COPA, the Citizen Office of Police Accountability, that was replacing the Independent Police Review Authority. So IPRA was getting rid of IPRA, creating COPA, and creating the Deputy Public Safety Inspector General's office. I was involved in helping write it. The Deputy Public Safety Inspector General ordinance was actually my idea. It came up in a talk with Community Renewal Society that wrote the first version of the ordinance that went into City Council called Fair Cost to create the Deputy Public Safety Inspector General and COPA. During that same time, a set of community groups came together, coalescing into a group and calling themselves the Grassroots Alliance for Police Accountability. As we were working to pass Fair Cops ordinance, Ron was also pushing to create his version of this community commission council that had no power. GAPA pushed the mayor's office to stall that in 2016, the summer and early fall of 2016. Do not pass this community council commission. We want to go back to our community groups, our communities, and work with them on a proposal our communities can live with. So they didn't pass it. Fair Cops version of COPA and the new Deputy Public Safety Inspector General's office. It did pass. That passes. I think around September of 2016. Unfortunately, since that time, they were never able to get Ron to pass a newer version. LIghtfoot campaigned on passing the either GAPA or the CPAC version, which was later introduced, which is a much more radical version. They were going to pass one of those. LIghtfoot committed to passing one of those in her first 100 days. Well, fast forward, we're now approaching her 720th day, or 2 years in office, and she hasn't passed it. A few months ago, she walked away from the bargaining table. Why they're bargaining 2 years into her office, and they were bargaining like 3 years with Ron? It's ridiculous that it would take that long to create this thing. She walked away and she said, hey, I'm done negotiating with these people. I'm going to introduce my own. That pushed the GAPA people and the CPAC people to come together, and they did create a compromised version. I have a copy of it. I told CPAC I wouldn't talk about it or go public with it until we had them on the show to discuss it. So early next week, we will be discussing in depth the compromised ordinance. We may be bringing someone in from GAPA. Demarius Young, if I got his name right. There was an interview with Demarius sometime over the summer about the GAPA version that was live at that time. So we have this compromised version. The Hispanic Caucus votes kind of in rejection of Lightfoot and votes to support this compromised version Lightfoot does not want. Period. Not sure why. I should say that. I'm pretty convinced that she doesn't want this commission to have any real meaningful oversight role, and certainly no role in selecting superintendents, even giving no confidence votes on the superintendents. Nothing. She doesn't want any of it. She's certainly for the show of this commission having something, not just being anywhere near actually legitimate oversight. So the Hispanic Caucus has voted. We'll see if the Progressive Caucus, I'm not sure if they voted to do. We'll see what happens. We talked to Matt Martin, Alderman Matt Martin, 47th Ward, 8 weeks ago, and he said there's a strong appetite, in his opinion, to pass a version that is not the mayor's version. So we're going to see, because I know a lot of aldermen are feeling pressure to pass something that isn't Lightfoot's version. So we'll see what comes up. This hopefully is a step in the right direction. We'll see what comes of this. One interesting note is, I think the vote in the Hispanic Caucus was 7-1, with 5 members not voting or not even showing up for the vote. So they must have known they would lose, and they don't want any part of it. It is strange how you get a person of color, someone who is worried about their communities, and not voting for a legitimate civilian police oversight. Doesn't make any sense to me. Maybe we should talk to some of those aldermen. We'll look into it. See if we can get them on the show to say why they don't want it.